Great leaders don't innovate the product, they innovate the factory. And yes, obviously great companies are built on innovative products and services, but those are the result of great leaders looking at what are the ways that we're structuring our company, what are the ways that we're leading and managing our people. Our people are going to create the innovations. And so what we as leaders need to do is innovate the way that we're letting them work. Okay, how do I innovate the factory? How do I know which one to tackle? I think leaders should be, especially for large organizations and big bureaucratic organizations, but also entrepreneurs who are kind of using their old companies as a model for how to run their new company, should be in the business of elimination. In other words, like the number one piece of advice I give to leaders and to managers is figure out what are the things that are blocking your people from doing their best work. It might be the vacation policy. It might be email. It might actually be the secrecy culture, whatever it is, and eliminate that. And so that's one of the reasons I say that not all of it works for everybody, because some companies didn't need to eliminate it in the first place. But that's really what I think leaders should be about, is what's keeping my people from doing their best work, and then how do I eliminate it or negate it? Companies like Netflix get big because they noticed a small part of the market that bigger companies said, it's not worth it, right? Netflix actually attempted to get bought by Blockbuster, right? Attempted to say, like, we'll handle all of what will be your online demand for movies. And Blockbuster was like, that's not worth it right now. We're making way too much money in these retail stores. So it wasn't worth them investing in. But to a small company, that little niche of the market is enough to sustain themselves. And then they use that niche to scale up and to move up market. That's the biggest piece of advice for leaders in big established companies, is don't neglect those small things that might not look like they have a justifiable ROI. If you can kind of break even on it, but still establish a foothold, you'll have a better sense of where the market is going, and you'll be able to sort of adjust with it. It's the companies that do that have sort of Netflix insurance, right? Because they already do have a foothold in that area. So when the market shifts that way, they can make the pivot way easier than a company like Blockbuster that's just been ignoring it for decades. What about these companies that have unlimited vacation, right? What about these companies that just say, you can take off whenever you want, your work, et cetera. It seems like sort of a management nightmare, because you never know who's going to be at work when. But when we live in an age where most people are doing incredibly creative work or problem solving work, even, everybody but accounting these days in a company is charged with doing creative work or solving problems or something like that. We still don't really like creative accounting. So that's okay. But so when we're doing that, what we need is a little bit more autonomy, a little bit more control. And what was happening at Netflix is probably the one that popularized this the most, is there was a feeling that you're not controlling when I'm working and where I'm working when I'm on days on. Why do you need to know and sort of nickel and dime and keep track of all of my days off? And the senior leaders of Netflix said, you're exactly right. And they picked up on the fact that it was communicating sort of a distrust for employees, that they wouldn't act in Netflix's best interest. So they said, so we'll just get rid of it. And how much time you need this year, your family life and your home life, your objectives for the company, get those done. And they're very, very true on that. But what I found most interesting is you dig into it, and one of the biggest complaints is everyone's either going to take too much vacation or they're going to take not enough. And when you look at the data on how many vacation days companies that switch to this take, it's actually about the same as before. The difference is the trust piece. Salary transparency, letting everybody know in the company what everybody else gets paid. I get it. I get people's fears at it, because when I first started looking at this, I was sort of like, yeah, that makes me uncomfortable. I don't want people to know what I get paid, et cetera. But the truth is, I believe, I'm an optimist. I believe that most companies are trying to find a way to pay all their people fairly and equitably and in relation to how much effort and value they're creating for the company. And if that's the case, then there's not much to lose by sharing it. The fear is if we share it, everybody's going to get all crazy. Well, the truth is everybody's crazy when it's secret, because we're terrible judges of what each other get paid, right? We make all these assumptions based on what car they drive. Well, they might, have a really well-earning spouse and they don't make a lot of money, right? So we can't judge it by that, or clothes or things like that. We're terrible when it's a secret at judging what people get paid. And as a result, we're more miserable because we're more likely to assume that somebody is overpaid or somebody else is underpaid, et cetera. But when you can point to the system and go, here's how we determine everybody's salary, and it's fair, and now you can trust us, there's actually a huge increase that happens in morale, because people believe that if they work hard and provide value, they'll get some of that value in return. The one thing I advocate almost every company begin to adopt is set limits on their email, right? We're in this 24/7 world, and I think it's killing us. So I think we need to either set limits on evenings and weekends, giving those back to people, or even setting hours in the day, like from 10 to 2, we don't do internal email because that's when our people are focusing in on their work. I think that's one that almost any company should really think about is, are we overloading our people with too much communication because of email? So a lot of it has to do with settings, right? And one of the things I actually love about Slack is the very first time I ever used it, about 2 or 3 days in, it actually said, you're getting too many notifications, so we're going to scale it down a bit, which I love, right? Because it's the anti-email, right? And that's really the issue, is what are we going to do to our settings? If we switch it over to Slack, that's great. We could keep it as email. The difference is we've got to, as a company and as a culture, kind of say, what are our communication times and what are the times where we have off to focus on, as Cal Newport would say, deep work, or what are the times we have to focus on friends and family, et cetera. So that's the biggest thing is making it a choice when people go to the well to drink and to communicate, but also setting limits on when, as a whole company, we decide these are off limits times. I developed a 2-device strategy. So I have an iPhone and I have an iPad mini. And when I get home from work, I switch them out. And the difference is the iPad mini is just entertainment and friends, social media. It's nothing work related. And it's been amazing, just that ability, that physical routine of switching them out and telling myself I'm officially off for the next few hours and it's time with friends and family has been huge for resting and re-energizing, so that the next day when I wake up and I switch them back out and I take my work one, I'm far more focused and more able to get everything done, which is awesome. Been a huge decrease in stress, increase in productivity. And it's weird because it's sort of the anti-tech solution, but I think the future of work is really having to figure that out. How do we not be always on so we can do that deep work that creates value?
If you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to subscribe. And to stay updated on everything that the Action Catalyst is up to, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Action Catalyst Podcast and on Twitter at Catalyst_Action. And thanks for listening.